I don't know if third time is not gonna get us to Adam Grant, then I guess you'll just be stuck with me, which is not that much fun. Okay. Hi everyone. Hello. Hi Adam. Okay. So I see everyone here. There we go. Adam Grant. It says, Adam, you're unable to join for some reason. Um, maybe your try request. There we go. Okay. Okay. Okay, I've requested Adam. Add. I've added Adam. Let's see if he gets the request, and we can do.
Hey, there we
Yay!
are.
Wait, you're
Yes.
sideways.
I'm sideways?
Yeah.
You're sideways.
I think that's because you're. Are you on the computer?
No, I'm on my phone.
Oh, odd. Is your
Weird.
computer, how is your phone? Is it?
It's in horizontal mode. Do you want me to go
Oh,
vertical?
yeah, I think there we go.
Okay, let's see if this works.
Yes. I mean, you would think after all these years of technology that we could connect easy breezy.
There we
No.
go.
Here we are.
Miracle.
Uh,
Great to see you.
Thank you. So nice to see you too. We have thousands of people live with us at the moment from all parts of the world, and I wanted to give them, I did the first time, but I'll give them another little brief on why I wanted to speak with you today. Adam is a professor at Wharton. He specializes in organizational psychology, which we'll get to that later. I think that needs a slight explanation. Adam is also a New York Times bestselling author. He has 4 incredible books that I've read already, and he just wrote a children's book with his wife. So I think this is a really good time to speak about that as well. And over Christmas, well, actually, you've created this book club for a few years, or a couple years ago, but over Christmas, I sent a few of your book clubs to my friends because your selection of books is very, very cool, and I love all the books that you've chosen so far. So that's it. Am I missing something? I
I
know
think
you
you've
have
already
a
done way
very
too much, but thank you
okay.
very
Well,
much.
I don't know what's too much or too little, so I wanted
You're,
to
you're
have
overly kind,
yeah,
but
I
thank you.
wanted to give everyone a little brief. But I love your knowledge and I love everything that you have to say, and I think it resonates with a lot of people. Your TED Talk was very inspirational, even before I met you. I just remember finishing it and feeling like for whatever, it was 10 minutes long or something, right? And I learned so much within that time frame. And every time that we're together, and whether it's a dinner with a lot of guests, I leave that dinner, I leave a meeting, and I feel like I've learned a lot from you. And this is certainly a time where we can help each other out with knowledge, with insights, and you're certainly the person to help with that. So welcome to
Well,
Instagram Live.
thank you. Delighted to be here. I was watching you long before you knew who I was. And I've always seen you as an incredible role model for grit. And more recently, it's also for curiosity. Our kids are also huge fans of Sharapova, and they've been asking when they'll get the next order. So watch out.
Well, that's very easy to do. We'll have one shipped out tomorrow. And you can have
Uh,
it for Easter as a
I
little
may end
indulgent
up
treat.
eating it before they see it,
Okay.
just so you know.
Okay. We'll have to put a lock on it. But let's start with, have you listened to any podcasts this morning? Anything that resonated with you? Anything that you wanted to start your day off and get in a better perspective or in a better mood?
You know, the sad reality of hosting a podcast is that I mostly end up listening to the sound of my own voice, which is excruciating. But
I know
was,
the feeling. I know the
was
feeling.
yeah. So
Yeah, I had to
mostly I've
do
been
that.
listening to
Did
drafts.
you narrate? You also, because for the books, did you read your own audiobooks?
I didn't for the first few, and then most recently I did for Power Moves, and I'm planning to do it moving forward because apparently there are people who like to hear from the author. But did
Yes.
you also record yours?
I did record mine, and it was one of the most painful experiences. And everyone does say that when they write a book and then they do the audio version. But I think it really helps. It helps set the tone, and the narration and the voice is so important when you're expressing your feelings and emotions, which is different than somebody else giving your work, especially when it's either your autobiography or some stories from your life or your experience or your expertise. It's hard to give to someone else to read through.
Yeah, I guess in your world especially that would be difficult because you don't have a
Yeah.
double, right?
No, no. Sometimes I wish for autographs and for the audio version of my book. I was thinking that might be a good idea. So sorry, I interrupted you on how. So you were listening to the Work Life podcast, which everyone should go and listen to. But the recent episode I listened to yesterday. Are you doing more in this series?
Yeah, so I was just listening to next week's episode on loneliness at work, and the following week on how we can fix job interviews, which I found way more interesting before I had recorded the ninth version of it.
Wow.
Doesn't everyone know this already? I've heard this so many times. How about you? What were you listening to this morning?
The first thing I did, I went and worked out. So I was listening to I did a Tracy Anderson class, and I stream it onto my TV. So I listened to a lot of very strange, very cool hip music that I just don't know what that is, but I'm like, this must be cool, so I'm gonna go with it. But I did that, and then it was a family's friend's birthday, so we were just on video for a little bit, and yeah, and writing some recipes down for dinner tonight with my mom.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's kind of been a. I'd love to hear what you think of this time and how you're structuring your day and what you're focusing on. I know focus is a subject that you touch upon quite a bit in a lot of your work. It's, you include it in throughout all the four books that you've written. So I'd love to hear your perspective on how you see focus right now and how it's changed the way the way that in which we should be navigating through in these days at home.
Yeah, I think the first thing I'd say is I feel like we're all BBC dad now. Remember that BBC interview where the guy's
Yes.
kids came dancing into the screen? That's everyone's life. I know we have three kids and they're all doing online learning, and especially when I'm in a video call, it's not always easy
For
for us
some
to
reason, they
manage.
just come in when you're on the video call, right?
That's It's like their timing is perfectly calibrated. So I just feel like we should adjust our expectations. And I know a lot of people who came into this thinking, okay, this is a horrible situation in many ways, but now I have more control over my time. I don't have to commute. So I'm going to be extra productive over the next few weeks. And
Right.
that, I think, for most of us has just been ridiculous. So I guess my first thought is we should lower our expectations. And that way, if we fall behind or we procrastinate, then we're not going to be too disappointed. And if
Right.
we have a really productive day or week, then it's a pleasant surprise. How about you?
I feel like throughout my entire life, whether I had a week off or I was training for a tournament, I definitely had a sense of discipline, because when I let go of too much and I let my body go and that discipline go, it would be really tough to get back. I always say for the day that you end up procrastinating, it usually takes double the amount of time to get back to normal. So although we are in this smaller space under one roof with your close ones, it is a time to say, okay, these are a couple of things that are important to me. And I did that when I was playing tennis. Was I would wake up, and although I had a lot of things going on and projects that I was curious about, I knew that my goal for that day was most likely something I was going to do on the practice court and during my training. And those are, I believe those are the lessons. I mean, I learned over 28 years of my career and my playing tennis for all that time. I want to take to now, because I think there's something really powerful in that, and waking up and having this one goal and starting my day with that. Right now, it's been, when I feel like I have a strong body, my mind is strong. So I try to wake up, and after a couple cups of coffee, I do go in the basement and I set up a workout, and it doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be strenuous, but it just feels like I did something for myself. And then I can go and do things to start off my day whether it's giving my time to my family, whether it's making a meal that we'd have later in the day. So trying to start with a positive outlook, not listen to the news when I first wake up, maybe do that later in the day.
That's one of the things I've been wondering about since you announced your retirement in that beautiful and courageous essay that I think we all read.
Thank you.
I, I wasn't anywhere near your level of athletic prowess, but I was a diver in high school and college. And after I retired, I really missed not only the structure and focus on a goal, but also just how objective performance was. I felt
Right.
like I knew every practice and every meet if I was getting better and if I had hit my targets or not. And I feel like in the
Exactly.
world of work, it's much more ambiguous and subjective. And I would love to hear how you're dealing with that now.
Well, it's really interesting because I'm really happy that my body is not taking a toll every single day. So when I do have that moment of I miss the strain and I miss this focus on the court and this like just putting horse blinders on and just seeing like my coach or my opponent and just having that as a target. I do think of everything that my body has had to go through for so many years. And so when I think of that, I'm like, okay, I'm all right with it. From a competitive side, I will forever miss that. I don't nothing, as you know, sport is such a unique vehicle. It teaches us so many lessons, and um, there's nothing that can really replicate it because it's in the moment, it's live, and I may try to find other things that bring out that passion, but I haven't found it yet in a way that sport has. That doesn't mean that there are other avenues that won't bring that out in me. It just means that sport is what it is, and that's why you have thousands of people coming out to watch an hour and a half, 2 or 4 hours of a performance. You're treated as an entertainer at the end of the day. So I miss those moments. I think back to the walks through the tunnels of a Grand Slam. Um, the crowd, the fans. I had extraordinary fans watching me play over the years. So they're very personal moments that I miss. But knowing what my body had to go through and understanding that it's slightly easier on my body now, just it leaves me at peace. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does make sense. I guess it also makes me wonder about the identity component of this, that you've been a tennis player your whole life, basically
Right.
since you could talk. And all of a sudden, that's not part of who you are anymore.
Mm.
Are you experimenting with new identities? Do you still see yourself as an athlete professionally? How is that unfolding?
Yeah, my identity was, I didn't think that my identity said tennis player. I think my identity was made up of characteristics that were more personal. So I was someone that no matter, how good or bad I felt that day, that like that grit and that passion for what I did, that was part of my identity. I never exactly put a sticker on my face and said, this is who I am. Although when I would travel and I would sign the international arrival forms and they said occupation, I always put athlete. And looking at that now, I think I will forever do that because it has been a huge part of my life. And that's how I see myself as, even though I won't be doing it again. So I'm still searching for what that could be in my future. I've certainly set up opportunities for myself that I'm working on and that I'm building on. Um, but it's also nice to be in a phase where a lot of it is unknown. I think so much of my life before was knowing where I was going to be, knowing what I had to do to get there, knowing the level I had to be at. And I find that anything that I do in my future is also, it's in this period of I'm exploring things, I'm trying things, I'm seeing what sticks and what doesn't, and I've never had that chance. So that gets me excited because I look forward to seeing and understanding and also learning what is it that will kind of make up my identity for 2.0.
Mm-hmm. That's
Yeah.
such a refreshing attitude because I feel like, I don't know, most of the people that I know, and certainly when I think about my own experience and all the data and psychology on this, uncertainty is threatening to a lot of people. And I think it's one of the reasons that this crisis is so uncomfortable for so many people who are otherwise safe and healthy, is we just can't predict the future. And for you to be able to say, okay, I'm going to treat that as an opportunity for discovery. I'm actually excited that I don't know what my next goal or my next purpose is. That sounds liberating.
Yeah, and I think that also comes from just being fortunate to be in a position, and I understand that not many are, because I can financially stay at home and not worry right now about the paycheck that I'm going to receive in 1 month, which, I mean, from everything that I'm seeing and reading is that's the large part of anxiety that comes from, I mean, all around the world right now. So, I can sit here and say, yes, I'm free like a bird and I have these opportunities and I'm willing to learn. But I think the lesson that maybe I can give to everyone is I'm not afraid to see what the future will bring, because I know that, no matter how young or old we are, we have experience in our life and we've always faced challenges. Life is not butterflies and rainbows. It's full of many uncertainties. And I'd say if there's anything that we could do to make us stronger for the future is treat this time with a lot of respect for who we are, be strong. The way that we handle the situation, and this has helped me in the past, will always help us in the future, no matter what we face. Whether, we might not have children now, we should be, for me, like, I don't know how you're doing it. I don't know how you're homeschooling 3 children.
My wife is
That
the
is,
same, is the short
that
answer.
is a whole that is a whole nother world. But I really hope that we use this time wisely, that we get out of it with a lot more strength, and that we can capitalize it on the next time that we're faced with adversity. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think this is the kind of experience that a lot of people will say it was extremely stressful. Maybe some people will even go through a version of post-traumatic stress disorder because of it. But one of the things that I was really surprised by when I started looking into the psychology of trauma and stress is that only about 15% of people come out of trauma with PTSD, whereas about half of people will actually come out feeling what they might call post-traumatic growth, which is the sense that, yeah, you know what, I wish this didn't happen. If I could undo it, I would. But because of this hardship, I'm better in some way. It might be a greater sense of personal strength. That's one of the most common forms of post-traumatic growth. To say, you know what, I got through that, I can get through almost anything. It could be a deeper sense of gratitude, right? I appreciate things that I never did before, like being able to listen to a podcast on a commute, having a
Right.
commute. Who knew that was something to look forward to, right?
Exactly.
For a lot of people, there's new perspective, there might be new purpose. And I think the biggest thing is many people come away with deeper relationships than they did before, saying, okay, I never realized how much I missed the people who I was close to when I couldn't see them every day. And so, I guess one of the things I've been doing lately, I'm curious about whether you've done this as well, is I've had a bunch of former students reach out and say, I'm dealing with a lot of FOMO right now because there are all these things that I had planned that now I have to miss. And my favorite way to flip that is actually into JOMO, the joy of missing out. So I made a list of all these things that I'm thrilled I don't have to do. Like, I love that I don't have to change out of sweatpants. I'm
I mean,
delighted. I mean, great, right? You're there right now.
so good. It's
It's
so good.
also, it's so much fun to not have as many awkward interactions with strangers, especially as an introvert. And so I'd love to know, Maria, what's on your JOMO list?
What is on my JOMO list? I'm a homebody, so I always love staying at home and inviting friends over. But I hate the responsibility of that. So, and we try, and like I built a home a few years ago, and I want to utilize the space because it took me a long time, like, to put this together. And when I come to the feeling of, okay, I really would love people over, but I think of every single detail. And it's so hard because I'm afraid if they put the cup on a table and it's going to leave a stain. I'm afraid if they're going to walk around in high-heeled shoes and my floor is going to get messy. So as I've been having dinners with my family every night, I was like, oh, everyone kind of knows the rules. everyone knows where everything goes. There's going to be no mess. We all know our little corners of the house. So yeah, I don't miss putting that together. But I will say the FOMO part of this is this connection and seeing someone and seeing their reaction and emotion, because even when we do it on video, it's never quite the same. And I think that's the beauty of having like relationships and partnerships. Yeah, but one thing before I forget, because this is something that you speak about a lot, but you are a huge fan of the 4-day work week. Am I correct?
I am, yes.
Okay. So does that change now?
I don't know. I hope we're going to do more of it, right? So, as an organizational psychologist, I can't help you with your OCD if you have it, right? I definitely can't organize your closet. What I do is I study how to make work suck a little bit less. And so sometimes that's trying to make jobs more meaningful and motivating. Sometimes it's trying to make teams more creative or collaborative. Sometimes it's trying to build a whole culture of generosity in an organization. And one of the things I've noticed through all these years of studying work and productivity is we can all get more done in 6 focused hours of work a day than 8 unfocused hours, or 4 focused days than 5 pretty distracted days. And one of my hopes is that employers are going to start to see that as, you know, as they can't micromanage as much, as people have a lot more flexibility to work when they want and as often as they want, that the number of hours you work doesn't always correlate
Right.
to how much you actually get done or the quality of work that you're able to produce. So yeah, I mean, this week is a 4-day work week because of Easter for a lot of people, right?
Right.
My hope is that this natural experiment that we've all been forced into is going to teach a lesson to many, many workplaces around the world. And we'll see more CEOs and executives saying, you know what, if you can meet your goals in 4 days, I would love for you to take the 5th day off.
Right.
There's a great example of this at a company in New Zealand called Perpetual Guardian, where when you join this company, they do insurance and wills. And when you join, you're expected to work a 5-day week. And then once you get off probation, you can work 4 days as long as you get all your work done. And it's a great incentive. It's to me, one of the most effective ways to motivate people. So I say,
Right.
bring it on.
I love that perspective. I was wondering if it changed during the time of being at home. And actually, this leads me to a question from a fan I have. And if anyone has a question, they can forward their questions in this little box below on the screen. But someone says, "I am a chronic procrastinator. Help!" Adam
Yeah.
Grant to the rescue.
Oh, I wish you a lot of luck with that. It's really challenging.
Especially now.
Oh, I mean, the fact that structure has gone away, that you don't have colleagues who are busy working right next to you, that maybe there's not someone expecting you to deliver at a particular time, that can make it a lot harder to stay focused. I think, yeah, I just did a podcast episode on procrastination, and it was a fun thing for me to take on because I'm the opposite of a procrastinator. I'm a precrastinator, as you know, Maria.
Yes.
I like to get things done way ahead of schedule, and the anxiety that a lot of people feel in the last few hours before a deadline, I usually feel in the first few hours that a project is assigned. So it was fun for me to look at the other side of the spectrum. And I think my big aha was I always thought of procrastination as a time management problem. That, you know, people had trouble sort of planning their schedule or getting on track throughout the day. And the research on this actually says, no, it's much more an emotion management problem. That people who procrastinate aren't lazy. Oftentimes they're putting a ton of effort into whatever they're doing instead of the task, right? Whether it's you know, cleaning your entire house or exercising intensely. And what happens when people procrastinate is they're avoiding negative emotions. It might be a task they find really boring. It might be a task that they think they're incompetent in, or a challenge that's just too daunting to take on. And so I think the first step for chronic procrastinators is to identify what's the emotion that is leading you to put the task off. And then how can you try to change the emotional experience of the task? For some people, it helps to do a little bit of mental time travel and say, okay, let me imagine how great I'm going to feel in 3 days if I get this task done, as opposed to it hanging over my head. Sometimes it's sitting, you know, even just in FaceTime or on the phone with somebody who's very productive and hoping that their habits will spill over. There's actually some evidence that in the traditional workplace, if you sit next to someone who's super productive, your own productivity spikes by about 10%.
Nice.
And so
I like
yeah,
that.
I think that's a step in the right direction, but I don't know that this is an easy thing.
No,
How do
certainly not
you
now.
how do you prevent procrastination? Because there must have been days throughout your career that you didn't want to work out, that you just didn't want to work.
Oh, well, I felt like during those days, it was that responsibility came to my team. because it wasn't, the sport wasn't just about myself. It was about the people that were on my team that had the same vision and the same goals that I carried. And I always recognize that not everyone is on the same page all the time. We have our good days and we have our bad days. We have days where, we got terrible news and it's just leave me alone. But most of the time when I felt that way, there was a huge piece of me that wanted to show up for my team, because I knew that if I didn't show up for them, and as a leader of the team, although everyone, I guess that the coach has a huge role, and everyone else around them has a fairly big role. Although I was the leader, I was dependent on them, like their energy bringing me up. So when I had those moments of, okay, it's not my day to day, I wanted to see how they could help me during those moments, how they could help me at practice. Because it's not just about getting you to train at 100%. It's getting you to 50% when you're below 10. And just getting through that day sometimes leaves, the next day, it begins the next day at a much better pace. And I think part of that is also characteristic. I think some people, when they need that time for themselves, maybe that's best. Maybe it's best not to draw other people into this negativity or negative energy.
Yeah. Well, I love the idea of thinking about your team as, not only helping and supporting you, but also as counting on you to show up and deliver, right?
Right,
I did
exactly.
I did some research years ago where I was studying a call center, and the jobs were extremely difficult there. So you had to call up alumni of a university and try to get them to donate to the school, and the average rejection rate was over 95%. So you were just getting turned down left and right, and a lot of the callers had a hard time motivating themselves. And one of the experiments I ran, I just brought in a scholarship student to talk about how the work the callers did made a difference. He came in and he said, look, I couldn't afford tuition. Because of the work that you all did, I'm now able to be in school, and I just wanted to let you know how much I appreciate your jobs. And
Oh,
the average caller spiked 142% in weekly minutes on the phone and 171% in weekly revenue. And the funny thing is, the callers didn't even realize it, right? When I came and showed them the data, there's no way that 1 5-minute interaction I had with one scholarship student was enough to motivate me. But we replicated it a series of times, and what it led me to is the idea that we're all more motivated when we know that other people need us.
true.
It's a source of willpower, right? To know that other people are counting on us. And so one of the thought experiments I really like is to say, okay, whatever project or task or job you're working on, think about who would be worse off if it didn't exist. And the people that come to mind, those people are the reason your work matters.
Yep.
And if you have them top of mind, that can keep you a little bit more focused than you would have been otherwise. I had a student who took this a little too far. He decided he was working in a bank, and the only person who cared about his job getting done was the CEO. And so he actually put a photo of the CEO as his computer desktop to
Oh,
remind
wow.
himself to work, which I thought was a
Oh,
little
wow.
extreme.
That's slightly odd. We have a few more these. Thanks everyone for all your questions. Let me get to a couple of them. What are some what are some good habits Adam has started during these times?
What makes you think I have any good habits during these
Well,
times?
we have to ask that question back.
I have one. I think the thing that I've done over the past few weeks that I've started to appreciate the most is I've started doing a little bit of my brainstorming at night, which is way off cycle for me because I'm a morning person, and I
Yeah,
always thought that that's
same
when I'm most
here.
alert. So yeah, that's when you want to be focused and thinking about the most important problems in your day. I read some research though showing that we're actually more creative off cycle. So creativity depends on making unexpected leaps and surprising connections and being nonlinear. And so it turns out at night when I'm a little bit foggier, I'm more likely to have some of those eureka moments. And so that's been a fun edit for me. And I think if you're a night owl, you
Yeah.
actually might want to do some creative problem solving in the morning.
Okay, that's a good one. Although I go to sleep so early, oh, I don't know if I could do that. Um, One thing I wanted to ask you is about, there's a lot of, everyone's producing content now. There's a lot of Instagram and Facebook lives. Everyone is reconnecting, and it's certainly a good time to do so. From a brand perspective, are you seeing certain trends that you're fond of that you feel are missing the mark in today's world, or things that maybe we should be focusing on if we do own companies, and whether it's a direct to consumer brand, whether it's a service. Do you have any advice on that?
It's an interesting question. I think, in the companies that I work with over the past few weeks, a lot of them have just been grappling to try to figure out how do we stay afloat, and how do we make sure that we don't have to downsize, or that we don't have to put people on furloughs. I think that's obviously an important and understandable response. I think there's a missed opportunity though, right? To say, okay, in a crisis, you have a chance to reevaluate the way that you work and the way that you communicate. And so, there are a lot of things that you probably wouldn't try. Let's say you were doing, whether you're going live or you're sending out an email campaign to your customers. Now is a time where they give you a lot of leeway. And so I think that the first thing I would do is I'd say right now, you want to poll your customers on what they need, what problems they're facing, what challenges they're experiencing. And then you can at minimum hold up a mirror and reflect back to them on what you learned, right? And say, okay, here's what, what you all reported to us. And now here's the conversation we're having in light of that.
Right.
I think that's to me the first part. And then I guess the second part is I'd want to do that internally too with your own team. I think, if you've managed a group of people for 2 or 3 years, it would be a little uncomfortable to sit them down and say, Maria, I probably should have asked you this when we started, but what are your favorite projects? What do you find motivating? What do you hate doing, and how can we make your job better? But
yeah, that's probably a little late.
It's a bit late, except now there's a license to do that, right? To check in and say, okay, what's working in your work from home life right now? What's not working? What changes could we make? And I think this is a wonderful time to gather that information and show a little bit of extra empathy and curiosity.
Yeah, in my opinion, there's no better time to make things personal. And I think a lot of companies and brands, we speak about this authentic voice and carrying this raw and real voice to a consumer, to a purchaser. And this is, if there's a time to do that and in a very natural way, I can't think of a better opportunity. But last question, another fan wanted to ask you the ultimate dinner guest that you, besides your family, past or present, that you would like to have dinner with.
Oh, present company excluded. I would say it would be a toss-up between J.K. Rowling and Abraham Lincoln.
Ooh. How come those two?
Well, I think Lincoln was probably one of the greatest exemplars in history of so much of what I study, right? He was such a generous giver that he held office hours as president, right? You could just come into the White House and he would spend in a typical day 4 or 4.5 hours just hearing people's concerns and trying to help them. And I would just love to learn more about what made him tick and how we could instill those kinds of values in more people and more communities. J.K. Rowling, I think, is, for me, one of the best examples of an original thinker that we have in the world. And I think, I was asked a while back, who's the most influential person on earth? And I decided that I think it's her because, first of all, she sold hundreds of millions of books and inspired a whole generation to read. But not only that, her books actually reduce prejudice. There's some experiments that psychologists have done showing.
I didn't know that.
It's amazing, right? If you read Harry Potter, there's something about, seeing the way that muggles are looked down upon and mudbloods are criticized that actually leads kids to be a little bit more tolerant of other groups. And I think that's a pretty incredible contribution to the world.
I mean, I've reread Harry Potter, it's embarrassing to say how many times I've read the book, but it's still so close. I mean, even my friend named her dog Dopey. So I
love it. Who's your choice for dinner guest?
First person that comes to mind is Marilyn Monroe.
Really? Why?
Yeah. I'm not entirely sure why, but I think I would have a really fun time. Because I love getting to know people that are not easily accessible. And I love understanding what makes them happy, what makes them put this guard up. And I don't know, I think I would find her company fascinating.
I think she would find your company kind of interesting
She'd probably be
too.
like, "Who are you?" But
Wait, there's professional tennis? I didn't realize.
I mean, who knows? Maybe she played tennis. But thanks, Adam. I loved speaking to you. Please stay safe, and I believe it's probably back to daddy daycare.
Thanks for having me.
Of
It was a
course.
delight to be here. I really appreciate you reaching out, and thank you for being so generous and sharing my work and the
Oh,
kinds
of
of ideas that I
course.
care about.
Of course. I absolutely love your work, and everyone that's tuning in, please follow Adam. He has so much insight that's so valuable, especially during these weeks and months. And check out his books. I think Originals is top of my list. So if you can get your hands on Originals, please do so. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.